sure things are done.
I should keep up.
I didn't know you could do that.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, February 24th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. Roll call of members. Tim Gilbert, Chair, is present. Sid Bremer, Vice Chair.
Present?
Alder Veronica Corpus Dax.
Present.
Commissioner Lisa Hanson.
Present.
Commissioner Jacob Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Rhonda Petrowski.
Present.
And Commissioner Jerry Wispisky is absent. Next item, approval of the agenda for the February 24th, 2020 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Bremer, and a second by Commissioner Petrowski. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Next item, approval of the minutes from the January 27th, 2020 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion approved. Second.
Who approved? Motion by Alder Veronica Corpus Dax, second by Commissioner Hanson to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item, regular business. We will have a series of public hearings tonight before each agenda item. And these public hearings have been properly posted, and public notifications have been published in the Green Bay Press Gazette. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and try to avoid repetitive testimony. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on the request to amend the existing planned unit development for Festival Foods Quick Trip to allow for the increase in height for an existing billboard located at 2400 University Avenue, submitted by Renee St. Laurent Lamar Advertising.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request, first public hearing is a request to amend an existing planned unit development in the 2400 block of University Avenue. We kind of refer to it as the Quick Trip Festival Foods PUD. This is the subject parcel here. This is the relocated billboard in question. Again, this is University Avenue, kind of a heavy commercial corridor. Festival Foods, Quick Trip, and the newly constructed Burger King is in this corridor. City's comprehensive plan recommends commercial uses in this particular area again. As part of the redevelopment plan for University Avenue, this is considered catalyst site number 2, or the triangle, and that's pretty much built out at this point for the most part. The zoning for the area, again, this is a planned unit development. It's kind of difficult to see, but there's kind of a border around these properties here. That's part of the planned unit development that was developed in 2016. Stepping back in time a little bit, in 2014, this is how it used to look, believe it or not. This is the old University Avenue here. Clement Street and Fred Street, both of those were rerouted to make way for the festival and for the Quick Trip to go in there. At that time, there was an existing billboard located along Sturgeon Bay Road, and that was not included as part of the original PUD. It was added by the council later at the council meeting, so it was not something staff had saw or the Plan Commission saw as part of that original ordinance. The language was added later. It was added later to relocate that sign up near this portion of Fred and the old University Avenue. This is a site plan from that era, so to speak. This is the Festival Foods site here, relocated Clement Street, and the Quick Trip site here. And this is where the billboard is currently located, up on that northwest corner of the site. These are some recent images from the past week or so. This is looking eastbound traffic. This is the new Burger King that was constructed. This is the billboard in question here. And this is looking westbound, and this is the, again, here's the Quick Trip site and the Burger King and the subject billboard in question. So the request before you is to increase the height of that from 30 feet to 45 feet.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak on this matter?
I would.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Renee St. Laurent, and I'm from Lamar Advertising, and of course I'm in favor, and I do have a little bit of information. The same site plan is in this packet, along with a couple of pictures and just a little history on the billboard itself. I have 8 of these. Can I just give them to you? Have them pass down? Thank you. So we had a long-term lease with the prior owner, which he was, he sold the property then to a development company. The development company came to us along with Quick Trip to move the sign and to sign a new lease, which we did. So we were cooperating with them. We could have held on to what we had because it went till 2029. But we cooperated, moved the sign, and then little did we know, just recently Burger King built a 2-story building. So the west faces are blocked. We can't sell them. We would like to raise it. It's actually now only 12 feet that we need to raise the sign in order to see the west face. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, this is, I know, it's just a public hearing, so.
Okay.
You'll make a comment, and then the next item on the agenda will be the actual request.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Are there any other speakers on this? Would anybody else like to speak? Okay. This public hearing is closed. Next item on the agenda is number 2, the consideration with possible action on a request to amend the existing 10-unit development for Festival Foods Quick Trip to allow for the increase in height from the existing billboard located at 2400 University Avenue, submitted by Renee St. Laurent, Lamar Advertising.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, as part of the PUD, one of the goals was to minimize the signage in that corridor and to control the signage, so to speak. Again, those requirements that were added were beyond the Planning Commission's scope at that time. The increase in the height, we believe, infringes on the airspace or the visual space of that corridor. Principal structures can only be 35 feet in that particular corridor, and this sign would exceed those requirements. So it's a sign clutter issue, it's an aesthetic issue, and our staff is recommending denial of the proposed amendment as proposed.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Burnham.
Paul, a question on, in your report, it states, based on research at that time, the former billboard was illegally installed without a sign permit. I'm not sure which billboard we're talking about or at what time.
Would have been the former billboard
Pre-relocation?
pre-relocation, yes. So certainly the billboard that was approved as part of the PUD, they got permits for that, it was installed correctly, met code, met all those standards. So that one that's currently there is not any issue. The relocated one is not an issue.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other discussion?
Just, I guess, a couple of clarifying questions. So how did the movement of the billboard from its original location to the current location, how was that introduced? Was that an ask of us, or of the city to the billboard company, or vice versa?
I don't, Ken, you can maybe chime in a little bit
Sure.
too.
So part of this was we did a development agreement with University Avenue Development LLC. Is run through Larry Langer, and they're the ones who did the development, basically did the assemblage of the property, and then we worked through the RDA and the city to do a development agreement, which basically facilitated the development of the Festival Foods, the Quick Trip, the Outlot, and then a future parcel to be done. In initial talks, discussion, I think Mr. Newmeyer is correct. We had some concerns about the legality of existing billboards in that area. One, not being able to find any record of permits for them, and then also some based on some deed restrictions that prohibited billboards in that area. Our initial goal was to try and get that billboard relocated somewhere else out of the corridor. I think the city is going to be investing some funds in that area and putting a substantial amount of money through that tax increment district and creating a gateway. Do not believe a billboard should be part of that. With that, there was some back and forth with the developer, and I think when it came through in terms of whether that should be in or not, we basically said we do not recommend having that in the PUD. If you want it in, you need to ask council. And they asked council, and council at the time put it in. And so, I think in discussing in terms of, one, I think, at least from a staff perspective and redevelopment authority perspective, we did not want to have billboards in there in the first place. Again, there's a process, and you can ask, and the developer asked for it, and council put it in. With that, I think now, one of our concerns is that, Mr. Newmeyer said, building heights in that area are limited to 35 feet, and so to push something above and beyond that, to me, then it makes the billboard the most prominent thing in that area. And then when we talked about, having a gateway entrance to the city, the goal was to have the gateway be, these buildings, getting rid of the blight that existed before, and this would go against initially what we had talked about in that development agreement. So it's kind of a short story. There's a long tangents I can go on about it, but in general, that's how the move and everything happened and how it came to be where we're at today.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Move to open the floor.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Henson, a second by Commissioner Petrowski to open the floor for public comment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Does anybody wish to speak?
Yes. First of all, the illegally placed billboard prior is news to me. We have not heard that through Lamar or Next Media or ORD. I don't have all the records with me right now. I can probably produce permits. So that I don't think should be taken into consideration. If it was illegal, we would have gotten a notice to take it down, which we've never gotten any feedback from the city on that. We were asked to move the sign. We moved the sign in order to comply with the new reconstruction of the area. And now because we moved the sign, we are completely blocked on one side. So, and the height of the sign right now is at 30 feet. We're asking for 12. We'd only be 7 feet higher than the 35 feet recommended height for a billboard.
Thank you. Was there any notification?
There was, sure. 200-foot notice that was sent as well. Failed to mention that there was some correspondence from the alderman that we received today that's also within your packet.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
I don't believe so. Is there anybody else? Excuse me. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this? Okay. I'll close the floor.
Motion for
Return to
support.
regular.
Second.
We have a motion to close the floor, a second by Commissioner Henson, a second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have that. Is there any further? Yes,
Well, I've
Commissioner
got
Henson.
a question for staff. So the permit was received, or was accepted in May of 2016 for the new sign. Was that the sign in the exact location it is now, or did we ask them to move it since 2016?
No, I think it's just, it was a one-time, the sign was to be relocated, they applied for that permit, and it was installed. We
And the
did not
relocation
suggest
was-
that they moved any further.
Okay, so the relocation was the 2016? Okay.
Correct, yes.
Anybody else? Commissioner Mel?
Just a question on the report. I noticed the WIS DOT part of it in there. Is there any considerations for it being a state highway that we have to consider here? Or being on one? Besides just their approval in a written letter?
I think the original sign had to receive approval from the DOT.
Would we have to get it again?
So I pulled up just a little more context, I did dig a little bit. So according to our records, the city issued a sign permit in 1986 for a billboard. And then on or around 1997, the permit was reissued for relocating the sign 12 feet, they moved it. Then the state of Wisconsin also issued a permit for the sign in 1986. But when the DOT, when they did the interchange, they sold a remnant parcel, which the billboard was located in, and that's where the deed restriction came in, saying that that billboard could not be there, hence like the illegal part of it, that it shouldn't have been there. So that's where we got into, for whatever reason, DOT or the city chose not to go down the road and try and enforce it and get it removed, but, I mean, that was 20 years ago. And then so with that, part of the relocation involved DOT approval. I think there was some concern because where it got relocated, we were concerned that it might be too close. There's a billboard a little further to the west, I think near the Associated Bank parking lot. And we were just concerned about spacing, that DOT would say no and too close. And to do a little more digging, just part of the notes, but one of the things that we talked about is saying, look, we felt that they were far enough apart, the DOT consented to that. So in terms of changing that, there may be some DOT approval that we'd have to go through again, but DOT, to answer Commissioner Hanson's question, I mean, approved everything on this site plan since 2016. That's another reason that we're saying kind of stick with the original plan for this.
Any further discussion?
I guess what I'm concerned about here, I certainly agree with the concept and the planned unit development program for the lower signage, because it's important to have our corridors be uniform and stick to the plan. What I'm concerned about here is it feels a little bit like bad faith to me to ask the billboard company to move the sign and then to permit a building to be built right next door that completely covers up the sign. I would say that it's pretty hard to argue that the eastern facing portion of the billboard isn't rendered completely useless and without value by the Burger King development. It feels to me a little bit like bad faith to ask them to move the sign. They move the sign, and then, well, we didn't do that, obviously, the council decided to do that. Approve them moving their sign there, and then also approve a building to be built immediately next door that renders it financially no longer viable. That's the hang up that I have on this.
Yeah, that there's financial hardship. Because, the idea was that we didn't want billboards there, but there's a billboard there and it's permitted. And now they can't sell half of that sign.
I mean, just in response, that is something that we had discussed in terms of when we were doing the original development agreement. I know we did discuss the developer had a chance to purchase that property. And also in terms of like the zoning code, I know we went through a variance process, but in terms of the height that would be allowed on that parcel, that has not changed at all since the original approvals of this. So in terms of kind of knowing what you're getting into, the developer was well aware, and in terms of what height possibilities might be in that parcel. In terms of the communications between the developer and the sign company, we were not a part of those in terms of that type of lease agreement. But just, to be fair, I think to us, those pieces have not changed since that original approval.
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Rowland.
Just quick, what's the height restriction in the PUD? Is it 30 overall, or is it 30 just for that?
For the billboard, it's 30 feet
Okay.
overall.
Because festival doesn't go much higher than that, if it does at all, no.
The principal building doesn't go much higher, I don't think. Some of the mechanicals might go higher.
Yes, Commissioner Gunn.
This is a difficult situation, and I think it involves a couple points at which it's unfortunate that things didn't happen. And the main one I would look to is that it's unfortunate that Burger King was not asked to set themselves back further, but they are within the 15-foot required setback. So everybody has gone according to law, and I agree with our presenter that the earlier situation and any illegality around that is not pertinent here at all. But I'm still stuck with the fact that the PUD from the beginning had the commercial gateway idea about it, and that's been a major part of many of the changes that we've made over on the exterior boundaries of the northeast side of Green Bay, and for that reason I will support the staff's recommendation that this request be denied.
Thank you.
I do think it creates clutter. And if you could read the billboard, there'd be even more clutter there, and if it were higher, there'd certainly be more clutter there. So we would be exacerbating that particular problem.
Thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, as far as that Burger King, I mean, that's a pretty small area. They wouldn't have been able to set it back because of the property immediately south of it. So I think that was, you know, that's probably part of it too. Was this something that was discussed? Like, were you guys aware when the building was going up, like, you know what, I think this is going to, block that sign a little bit, or was it something that nobody really was
Yeah.
aware of?
They had their own site constraints. They were a very small lot to begin with.
Right.
And I think their proposal always had that building on that side. It didn't really dawn on me. I wasn't thinking about billboard. I was thinking about the site, the Burger King site.
Right.
So that's the result of the
Yeah.
building placement, certainly.
But the lot that the sign is on is a fairly sizable, I mean, it's a lot bigger than the Burger King lot, correct? As according to the map you've got?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not like it was just a sliver of land that if we deny the request, that they can't do something else with it, not a sign probably, but it's still a usable plot of land.
Right, I think it was pushed to the far northwest just for obvious reasons, because there's a new tenant coming in, a new owner. I think that was to not obstruct their signage as well, and their visibility, so.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Miller.
I'm just going to echo a little bit of what Sid said on it. We were all here when we put the PUD through in 2016, and we did not include the billboard as part of that. Council did it after. I have a hard time going back on that stance just because it now exists. I think we all still have the same thought we did when we put the PUD through to council. So I have a hard time going back on that at this point just because council threw it in after. I would just stick with the same stance that we had before and say, denial in this case, even though it is still there.
Any further discussion?
I have a question for
Yes.
staff. Is there a less comprehensive approach we could take that doesn't amend the entire PUD? That's something more akin to a conditional use permit that would allow a variation for this particular sign as opposed to changing the entire PUD?
I don't think it's about any sort of relocation. I think it's a simple dimensional issue. Its max height is 30 feet. They'd want to go now 12 feet higher than that. So there's no uniqueness beyond that, I would guess. I think it's rather straightforward.
But I guess that's not what I'm asking. Rather than amend the entire PUD for all the properties covered, is there a way we could carve out something more specific to this sign?
Well, I think we're kind of doing that in essence, I guess. We're looking at just that sign section of the ordinance, so I don't know how
I
much
see.
more. Yeah.
I see what you're saying. So the ordinance was drafted, or the amendment put in by the council was mindful of the specific sign.
Right, and that's kind of reflected in the report. There's a series of conditions that were added, basic dimensional requirements that the council added, and we're reacting to just one of those requirements.
I guess what I'm inclined to do, even though I think that it's not, I mean, it certainly created a hardship for this, for Lamar, is if the council decided they were gonna change this to allow the sign, I think it's gotta be for them to come up with a way to fix it. And we should stand with the staff and their recommendation. So I'm inclined to vote in favor of the staff's recommendation too.
Any further discussion? If not, the chair will recommend or entertain a motion.
To take a vote?
To
Make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve the staff's recommendation that we deny this request.
Second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Brammer, a second by Commissioner Petrowski to approve the recommendation, which is denial of the request. Any further discussion? Okay, the chair would ask that you cast your vote.
Now, the way this is stated, though, is problematic.
Yes is agreed.
To allow for the increase in height for an existing billboard. My motion is to deny the request.
Correct. That's what you're voting on.
Okay, good.
So yes.
I got a little worried about the
Yes,
language.
yes is
I didn't know if I
agreeing
was
with
right
it.
or wrong.
No is no.
Yes.
Right.
Yes is
No.
yes, no is no.
Unanimously for denial.
Okay, thank you. All these items will come up before the city council on March 3rd?
Correct.
Okay, item 3. Public hearing on the request to rezone the easterly portion of 1860 West Mason Street from general commercial to highway commercial, submitted by Matt Rachinsky, Excel Engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This public hearing is in regards to a request for rezoning of property at 1860 West Mason Street. This is West Mason here at the intersection with Taylor Street and I-41. The property is in the northeast corner of Mason and Taylor. It's had a long history of being a restaurant, and its future use will be a restaurant. It's a commercial area, Pizza Hut across the corner, across the way, Home Depot up to the north, a daycare, and some multifamily to the south of Mason there. Comprehensive plan recommends commercial in that particular area, low-density residential to the south. The zoning for the current area has kind of a split zoning on this property. It has a highway commercial zoning on the corner, and the eastern half is C1 or general commercial. So the request here is to take this C1 portion to C2 to make it all uniform. And this is an image of the property as it stands more recently as a former restaurant.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this? Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Are there any people wishing to speak? Okay, let the record show that nobody stepped forward, and this public hearing is closed. Item 4 is the same thing. Consideration with possible action on the request to rezone the easterly portion of 1860 West Mason Street from general commercial to highway commercial, submitted by Matt Rachinsky, Excel Engineering.
Really just a cleanup zoning, and staff recommends approval of the request as proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve?
Second.
I do have a question for
Yes,
staff.
Commissioner
My one concern about this, given the oddity of the triangular lot, was where the entrance and exit drives would be for the drive-through, because of that is the primary difference between the general commercial and the highway commercial.
We haven't seen a site plan yet, but we would expect one probably fairly shortly. I don't know it's going to change a lot. There are existing driveways on the frontage road here. I don't believe there's anything.
There is.
There is
There's
one on the
one,
tail,
yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure how that's going to be handled in the future, but certainly nothing but Mason Street. So we'll work with the developer on that and see what they propose, but we'll make sure things go.
Thank you.
And I believe there have been drive-throughs on that property with other businesses, and as far as I know, it hasn't been an issue.
Right.
Good.
Dating back to A&W and others.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty drive-through.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we had a motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Petrowski to approve the recommendation. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair would ask you to cast your vote.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you. Next item. Public hearing on the request for a conditional use permit to establish a live work use within a low-density residential district at 1815-1827 South Monroe Avenue, submitted by Mimi and Chad Schrader, petitioner.
We do have a problem with the English language there. I think that's a live-work use.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. As this is consideration, or it's the public hearing for a request for a conditional use permit for that live-work use at 815, 827 South Monroe. So you can kind of see the sites here. I can't see them, but you can see them. So there's two lots. They're outlined in red. This is South Monroe, it's St. James Park. This is First Evangelical Lutheran, I think, Lutheran Church right up here. So there's an existing home on the site. It's very large. It's a 4,000 square foot home built in the early 20s. It's what's called a Tudor Revival home. It is in the National Register of Historic Places. It's in a district, so it is regulated by our Landmarks Commission. The second site, it has a 2-stall garage at the back and about 3 or 4 parking stalls surface behind the home itself. The lot to the south is a vacant lot. It is landscaped. It really acts as a side yard for this home. They're separate lots, but they've been together probably since the 20s, I'm guessing. Not sure, but. So here's kind of a close-up where you can see the garage. Entrance goes off onto Monroe here. Parking is in the back, large structure here, and then the yard, which has a fence around it. Future land use plan for this area shows all low-density residential. It does show some semi-public for the church and some parks for the park area, of course. And the zoning is very simple, low-density residential zoning, R1, and the park is public institutional. So this is kind of a picture of the front. There's a lot of trees, so it's difficult to see. But this is looking south down Monroe. And then here's a little close-up pictures of the home itself. Again, it is about 4,000 square feet. The lots together are about 36,000 square feet. Moving forward, this is the southern lot, which is vacant or unused yard area. You can kind of see it there. The petitioner in their packet had explained that they don't plan to do anything with the house, but they plan to landscape the southern lot, and these are some examples that are in your packet as well. I just kind of threw them on there so you can take a look. So I'll kind of go back to this picture. So again, the home is on the Register of Historic Places. Any changes to the home itself, physical structure of the home, exterior, would have to go through Landmarks Commission. The petitioner does have a description of the use in her packet, so it would be a live-work unit. You're running a photography studio out of the home and also living in the home. Owners would have to live in the home as well. They would at first have no employees, potentially 1 to 2 after they're established. Code would allow them to have that, up to 2 employees. It'd be hours of operation would be Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, by appointment only, potential for a Saturday. So this is really kind of the classic live-work scenario. Our zoning code in the single-family zoning district, or the R1, allows live-work units through a conditional use permit. And it would allow a lot of this type of use, office uses, educational uses, no manufacturing or retail per se. And so they are requesting to utilize this parcel, both parcels and the home for their home and the photography studio.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak on this? Yes, sir.
I had questions on
If you'd
it.
come up to the podium,
Sure.
state your name and address.
My name's Daniel Kiernan. I live at 816 South Madison. I'm on the other end of Congress. I was curious about the live-work situation and how narrow is it? Will there be, questions such as will there be any signage allowed? Is one that comes very quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Signage is allowed, but only as a residential, it's a 1 square foot sign.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be much different than a nameplate or a number plate that you have on a regular house.
And the reason I ask that is, I live at 816 South Madison. I've lived there since 1993. Astor Park is a historic landmark neighborhood. This neighborhood survives by creative reuse, and I'm hoping that this ensures that that's what this is. It also dies by creative reuse when it's not done properly. Good examples, when they wanted to put the left turn lane right on Corlair and Monroe and take out 2 historic front yards. They wanted to, and it comes by nibbles. I mean, the Astor House on Monroe also affects those houses. The one to the north, to the south is a long-term rental, and the one just to the north got rehabbed into a useful residence. So it has very much, any creative use has to very much respect the neighborhood, or we lose the neighborhood. And it's a place where, people have to live very restricted because of the landmark status. And that's what I'm looking for, this council would ensure that, because we live or die by the nibbles. And the other part of that is, this also, very clearly, this is the only creative reuse without council approval that can be made, correct?
This does require council approval.
But I mean, and it can't convert to anything else without approval from your staff and this, because that's critical too, because once something, whenever commercial and residential butt up, residential always loses. I mean, that's why people buy up properties and flip it to a gas station, because it's worth more, and then the house is next to it. I'm not saying this is anything like that, but I am asking very strongly to make sure that that is the case, that the neighbors, near and far, very much have a very strong residential sense. And it sounds like, I missed your name.
I'm Chad.
Chad, and maybe they want to improve it, not diminish it, and that's what I'm here to ensure. That it's very narrowly defined. Will there be more parking allowed? Will there be more
We'll
asphalt?
address that when we get to the next item, which is the actual request.
Okay, very good.
At that time.
So that's my request, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jill Hogan, and I live directly behind here. There's a fence that separates us. We're right back. I guess my concern is we've lived there for going on 5 years now and knew the previous owner and stuff, that when we got this and heard what it was going to be is, and correct my wording, but I heard someone at the end of here say something about but it restricts the use of retail. I guess I don't understand the difference between what they would be doing, because they're essentially selling a product, which to me is retail. So does this open up if the next house down wants to open their home and have part of it be a tattoo parlor, and then if somebody in back of there wants to open a cake shop, like what are the limitations for where it ends? And being in the historic district, I thought our homes were, it was to ensure the integrity of our neighborhood and our homes, and not to change it into businesses, I guess. That was my understanding of part of what the historic district was about. And then, I mean, I can certainly understand pictures, a big day would be Saturday. I'm thinking weddings and stuff, but so we're in our backyard in our fire pit burning leaves, and it's blowing smoke over there. Who does what, I mean, nobody wants to be a bad neighbor, but I just wonder if it opens it up to a lot of other things, and that's a concern for mine. If they develop that area, they're gonna have lights, you know, that are lighting up the area, and could it infringe on, you know, people trying to go to sleep? I don't know. I mean, I just don't know, because we haven't seen it, and it's too late to say something after it's done for us, so that's just my concern.
Would anybody else like to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Amy Schrader, so I'm the one making the request. I guess to address your concerns, we started the studio back in '96 in a 1868 Victorian that we rehabbed, but we kept it very appropriate. So it wasn't, you wouldn't have known that it was a studio. We totally respect the whole Astor Park area and historic homes, and when we left that city, we moved it into a commercial building that was also historic, and we respected that too and kind of kept that all in check. We would not be using lights outside, and my feeling is you would feel we were more a neighbor than a business. Most of my clients would be during the daylight hours, and lights outside would not be an issue. We would just not do that. We would not have much in the way of business on Saturdays. That would be an exception, not a rule. Most of it would happen Monday through Friday, and in the summer months, maybe a little bit into the evening hours, because it's obviously later in the day that the sun is out, but other than that, it would not be an issue. Parking, there are two or three spots in the back. We would probably only have one car, no more than any of you would have in your driveway on any given day of the week. So it wouldn't be a coming and going of 10 cars at a time and that sort of a thing. We've been looking. I'm part of the disaster fire in East Appear last spring, so I've been renting space from other photographers in Green Bay for an entire year. And honestly, haven't found a building that has worked for me. This just seemed like a perfect fit. It's like full circle. It's like, okay, we started out in an old Victorian home, let's wrap it up in an old Victorian home. The landscaping would be tastefully done, so we're not going to do any crazy, I'm not going to do like a graffiti wall you'd have to look at or anything like that. And again, I would really, I guess, restate that you would probably find us to be more of a neighbor than a business. I guess that would probably be my best way to describe that. My husband he doesn't work with me in the business, but he's a huge supporter of my business. Like I said, I opened up in '96, and we take care of our older homes, and we take care of our yards almost to a fault. So I don't know if that helps, or if I can answer other questions. Am I allowed to do that, or no?
Well, we can address that in the next.
Okay.
When we have to look at it.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak on this? Is there any other people that would like to speak?
The only comment I would make is we did receive an email, and all of you have received that, and it was an email objecting.
Thank you. Would anybody else care to speak on this? Okay, I will close the public hearing portion. Item 6 then is a request. Consideration of possible action on a request for a conditional use permit to establish a live work use within a low-density residential district at 815, 827 South Monroe Avenue, submitted by Lemmy and Chad Schrader, petitioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you kind of heard the recap before. I guess I'm going to answer some of the questions that came up.
Thank you.
One, other uses or future uses of the property. This conditional use would be for a live-work unit with a photography studio. So even if you were changing it to a different live-work unit, you have to amend, unless it was another photography studio, you have to amend that CUP. Now, there are things in the regular single-family zoning district, I think, that are quasi-public, and I wouldn't call them commercial, but it's not exclusive single-family homes in that district. So there, you know, there is a potential for like I think a daycare is permitted by right, you know, that kind of stuff. That's the way it is everywhere in the city for all the R1. This wouldn't change that. This would allow that service business, and it's different from a retail. Retail has trucks coming, dropping off materials, customers coming and going at random times. This is a service-oriented business, and it's by appointment only. So also limited to employees to no more than 2. Lighting, I know the petitioner has stated that she's not going to add any lighting. Lighting would be regulated just like any other lighting in a single-family district or a low-density district, as would parking. So you couldn't add a giant parking lot. It's not permitted in a regular single-family district. Now, a regular single-family district allows a little parking. But I mean, it's no different than the codes are today. The historic preservation regulations in the city don't regulate use. They only regulate exterior appearance of buildings. So though it's very important to have those protections for a healthy historic neighborhood, and it has shown in the past that that does keep neighborhood healthy, it's really on building design. Signage is very limited for live-work communities to no more than you could have for a regular home. So you could have a nameplate on your home that says, you know, Buck Residence, you know, 815. It would be the same type of thing. And I don't know if I think that covers all the questions. But when we analyzed this as staff, so we looked at what would be coming and going of people, what would be the intensity of use there. Now this is a small business, a home business. There, in our opinion, wouldn't be more vehicles coming and going than what could come and go with a regular single-family home. Home with 3 or 4 kids, 16-year-old kids have cars. That's going to be 3 or 4 cars a day coming and going, which would be no different than this live-work type of business. I'm not allowed to have any signage. Landmarks would have to approve any changes to the building. So we didn't see that there would be any larger impact to this than there would be on a regular residential use, which is sort of the intent of the live-work units, correct? So we did send out notices to the neighbors. We did receive the 1 comment, as well as the other person, and we are recommending approval of the conditional use for a live-work unit for a photography studio and photography studio owner's residence. So they are tied together.
Yes, Commissioner Bennett.
A locational question, am I right that this is 2 blocks south from the Astor House?
I think it's 2
2 or 3.
2.5.
Does the Astor House have a similar kind of arrangement?
Well, the Astor House, I believe, is a bed and breakfast.
Right.
And that is a different, they believe they got a conditional use permit,
Back in the day.
but it's a different type of use. That's a larger commercial use. It's singled out differently in the code.
Different ground.
And what's important in response to the concerns expressed here is that this permit is for this particular location and for this particular use.
Correct.
Commissioner Hess?
So, I guess just to reiterate what Commissioner Bremer just said, so it's a CUP specifically for a photography studio, and it follows the owners, correct?
Well, the CUP is for the studio. So if the owner were to sell the business and it would be run as the same type of studio by the new owners who live in the home, it could continue to operate. You can't tie it to the ownership, it's tied to the use. If that use were to stop for 12 months or be augmented in any way, then the CUP would be invalid and they'd have to come back and, but it's not tied to the ownership.
And I don't know if this is a question that you can answer if I'll ask the owners. This house has been for sale for a while. Are these the new owners or are these the previous owners?
I believe in their application, they did state that they have an offer to purchase conditional on approval.
On this, okay. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Nolan.
Just clarification, landmarks wouldn't have anything to do with the landscaping, right? It would just be the structure itself.
Likely not the landscaping unless,
It's
the
somehow-
National Register does not have that, if it was like a Shakespeare Garden or something that was actually on the register itself. They may have comment on the fencing maybe, and maybe, there's, I think, pillar columns at the end. Those types of elements they would have control over, but probably not trees or bushes.
Okay.
Yeah,
on the Landmarks Commission, and we haven't come across anything that had to do with landscaping. It's all been structural exterior.
Yeah, there are some cases where you'll have a Shakespeare Garden or something that is actually on the register itself.
So just as a point of clarification, I guess, allowing this conditional use doesn't allow it allows a different use for the property owner, but doesn't entitle them to any different parameters as it regards lighting, driveways, signage. All of those would be required to be consistent with all other residential properties.
Correct.
So the only thing that would really change would be what's the use inside the property.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
The parking question, is that explicitly answered?
Motion.
Yeah.
Motion to open the floor. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, a second by Alder Corpus Dax to open the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, sir, if you go up to the podium.
That was my other question. Is that tied to R1 zoning also then?
Parking is tied to R1. I mean, the low-density zoning district does allow surface parking. I mean, you could have surface parking in the back of your home as well, but it's limited to no more than 4 open stalls. So it's not a big parking lot.
So there wouldn't be, I mean, that second lot actually was, I think, didn't Sue Thalen buy that when a residence burned down on there? I mean, does it allow for asphalt on that? I mean, because that does change the feel of a residential neighborhood when you start getting large amounts of pavement. As the code addresses, I just want to make sure that the code doesn't allow for a back door to, for
Right.
more.
Well, a single-family home allows 1 driveway per lot. Yeah, the parking would have to be behind the home, and they already have, it looks like about 3, possibly 4 stalls, so they wouldn't be allowed to put any more. I guess one thing that is important to note, that these are 2 parcels still. So
Correct, and that's
they're
what
not
I was
one.
aware of also. So they could add another entrance there if they wanted to, or they have to
No,
build?
they could not. They could sell the parcel, I guess, and a house could be built on it. At that point, I think the CUP would have to be reinstated for just the original house.
The other thing point I wanted to make is once you do get business in an area, it also puts a compressive force on the bottom, such that, business can always cash flow better than residential. So you can get commercial in an area such that it can never afford to leave. And that's one reason that you're looking to do this, and that Craig and Poly Legal are looking to sell this with this conditional use, is because it supports a higher level of price. When this house sold, it was the most expensive house in Astor when it sold, I believe in 2005. The only one that's exceeded it is one on South Van Buren, which had extensive remodeling the last few years. Even the Castle, as it's colloquially called, did not sell as much as this property. That's my only other comment here. Once you approve commercial, is it going to rule out any further use? And I don't mean by code, but I mean by practical concept, by a single family. Because once you get a certain compressive force in there, let's just, a studio cash flow is better than, my kids take money out, they don't bring it in, at least not at this stage of it. So that's my other point that I wanted to make earlier that I'll bring up now. Because it can, if that becomes a standard and you're slowly, you're getting a different neighborhood feel. And I think the board should consider that because, the house next door under an R1 could become a conditional use and so on and so on. And at some level, that is what happened downtown. I would need some historians here. I haven't been here long enough. The single families became law offices, et cetera, et cetera. And we're at that Mason Street divider. And if you don't preserve this neighborhood, it's, single family owners like myself are gonna, and this is creative reuse, but the city has to be very, very careful because you can creative reuse something out of existence. It becomes an extension of downtown. That's what Astor Park residents are always pushing back against. And it gets old after time. That's a personal opinion, it has nothing to do with tonight's meeting. But you have to be very, very careful as a commission to make sure you're addressing that. The code allows all this, but you have to make sure the cumulative effect doesn't, topple a high-quality residential neighborhood.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Bill Galvin, I'm the alder for this area. I've had some conversations with these folks here that want to buy it. So I've had most of my concerns addressed. It seems like that, in essence, when if this passes, all said and done, a common person driving by or walking by would not know that this is anything more than a residential home, okay? And that even what would take place during the daytime or even nighttime, if they had nighttime photography, again, no one would notice any difference between a residential home and this home, okay? So that's how they operate their business. Time goes by, they sell it. Someone who buys it wants to also do photography. Is there any restriction from keeping them from turning the entire home into a photography studio where it's no longer residential? There is?
There's definitely, yeah.
So that would-
They're limited to, I'm not sure what the exact percentage is, it's a small amount of the home. 30% of the total gross square area of the unit. There's a bunch of different conditions that apply to live work. The goal of the code is to keep the home primarily home and not look any different or operate any different than a regular home would.
Do we have any other homes within the Astor neighborhood area that fall under what they're applying for?
You just approved the one in council.
The old not by bread alone?
Yeah, old not by bread alone.
Right, where in that one, because I was part of that, the whole lower level is commercial, the whole upper level is residential. But apparently they're taking the two apartments and they're going to use it as one family dwelling. Are there any others though that, I mean, other than like say the Astor House or, I mean, do we keep track of that kind of stuff?
Well, we could have them by CUPs, but, yeah, I'm not aware of any that are in there. Now, there might be some small people doing accounting out of their den or whatever.
You get a law office or something like that, but as to.
They should be getting a CUP when they do that,
Well,
but they may not.
Yeah, we better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. But as to this gentleman's concern here, I mean, it would be nice if there was a way of checking back to see out of all these properties, how many currently do have a CUP allowing it to be used for, a small business and that. So we can kind of keep track that, yeah, maybe we are starting to go to the point where we're granting too many of these, and it's in essence going to change the neighborhood. As he talked about trying to resell a home like this, and this home has been on the market for a while. Because these homes are hard to maintain, they're expensive to heat, I mean, the taxes aren't inexpensive at all, and so I can see where some of his concerns are. So I don't know if I need to make a formal request, or if I could just, who I would check with city staff to see if we could check and see how many of those that we do have, if any.
You can do that.
Okay, and then that email that you folks received, I mean, it kind of went off the rails at the end there, but if someone from staff could respond to the person that sent that email and kind of soothe her concerns or fears, because I think everything I've heard or we've heard here tonight would address her main concerns about this request for a permit. And I mean, if
I've talked with her about 3
you
times
have,
already.
so she has the answers. Okay.
And perhaps you would be so good as to speak to her as well, because I think having her alder say, here's what I heard, and I am convinced that this is going
Okay.
forward in an appropriate way.
I'll reach out to her.
That would
I
probably
think,
help
is her
more
email
than
included
staff.
in that, or was there a way of contacting her?
It is not.
Could you forward her email to me, or check with her and see if it's okay if I reach out to her?
I think you were copied on the email. You probably
Okay,
replied.
then I'll get ahold of her. All right, thank you.
I guess the only other comment I would make, so there was some mention about the downtown homes being converted to offices.
Yeah, it's
Most of those areas are zoned office residential, which allows either type of use in the home. This
And
is a
it's-
strict low residential district.
And it's either type of use. That is, the homes there, the buildings there can be used either as home or as offices.
Or sometimes mixed.
Sometimes mixed, but this is specifically mixed, and it's a specific proportion of the structure that can be used for the business as opposed to the home, with the home dominant. So it's a different situation than your concern with the downtown.
I guess to put a sharp point on it, no one under a conditional use live work permit could just run a business and not reside in the property, correct?
Correct.
It has to be the owner, yeah. Good point.
Is the floor still?
It's still open,
It
yes.
is, sorry. I have more questions for staff.
Would anybody else like to speak on this?
Then I move we close the floor.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Brenner, a second by Aldercorpus Stacks to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are back. No.
I just would like to know what other, I don't expect an exclusive list, but what other types of businesses are permitted under a live-work CUP?
Well, the business could be a lot of personal services. So let me see, the business component of a building may include offices, small service establishments, home crafts, which are typically considered accessory to a dwelling. By appointment only, associated with fine arts, crafts, or personal services. May not include a wholesale business, a manufacturing business, commercial food, limo, auto repair, or any type of vehicle maintenance. So that's sort of our definition. So a personal service, you could be an accountant. I don't know if you want to throw in any other things that are in there.
A massage therapist.
Yeah,
massage
maybe a
therapist,
therapist.
who we recently also
Sure.
What about a tattoo parlor?
That would be, I think, would be more of a retail type use.
And retail would be strictly prohibited, correct?
Under this.
Yeah, anything that has a coming and going of customers.
Pretty much anything that has open hours, open for business 8 to 5, come as you are, that would be prohibited under any live-work CUP.
Well, I don't know if I would go that far. I mean, if you were an accountant and somebody stopped in to ask you to do the taxes, they could do that. I mean, they wouldn't have an appointment.
But anything that involved items for sale on regular display with coming and going would be prohibited.
Yep, you wouldn't be able to do a display outside.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Brenner.
a comment that I would make, and I certainly appreciate and share the concerns about the historical nature of the neighborhood, and this is something that we've been very careful about over time. Old neighborhoods like this had a lot of live-work situations. That is, this is a traditional way that people manage their homes. The doctor often lived in his home where his office was, and the people would come to his door and in and out. That was probably more common than having a doctor's office in a separate place. So this is a very appropriate historical use that I think fits nicely into the Astor neighborhood, and I think De Pere's unfortunate loss is our gain. I'll be happy to support this. It's a good use of a very handsome building and a beautiful large backyard. And not only for the business, but for your own home.
Any further discussion?
Just one, I guess, thought consistent with Commissioner Brenner's position. I think it's a nice way to integrate history with kind of the evolving, emerging, entrepreneur-based economy that we're living in, where so many more people are living and working from home, running their primary source of business online. I think it's a nice way to kind of bookend the past with the current, current times in the future. So I also will be enthusiastically supporting this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the request.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bremer and a second by Commissioner Hanson to approve the request. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair would ask that you cast your vote.
Unanimously approved.
Okay, thank you. Was unanimously approved. Yeah, and again, this will go before council on March 3rd. Okay, next item, informational, director's report.
Okay, last council meeting was February 4th. And at that meeting, all the actions of the planning commission were approved. We placed on file the driveway return on the road, approving the CUP.
Not conditional.
Walnut Street, PUD for signage and packaging.
It's a great house.
And closing, vacating portions of Acton Street and Lawrence Street. Additional, enough conditions on there, well, water fund, a few more good on there. 3 pages of conditions.
With your white paint.
So that went through for preliminary resolution, quick trip plan, from Old Road, and then obviously the approval of the resolution, public hearings here. We tried it out in the discussion, thought, pairing these, where we have the public hearing and then the, items. I think that's a way, thankfully nothing was super high stakes tonight, but we can stop or something, we can address the issue, hear from the public, take it.
That's my husband, John.
And sort of roll the next one.
He's our next
So,
ready.
the hearings up front and then.
Where the two houses
What were you
are.
talking about? So, I think it went pretty well tonight.
That's the next house. Yeah, 3
Very well, I
to
thought it was going to seem repetitious, but it doesn't. You get to hear the concerns before you get to the item of business. And I think that's useful, and then the more specific issues come up as you go into that item.
Sure, and I think, look, this body and just council body in general have pretty willingness to open the floor right here for public comment. But I think, doing it right before, just in case you guys change your minds and you don't have to open the floor, decide not to do it. At least you guys, the public feels that they have a chance to get their voice heard before you make a decision.
Thank you.
Yep.
The next thing is, the next meeting is Monday, March 23rd, 2020. Okay, before we adjourn, I just want to ask, is there anything we can do to streamline this whole public hearing, or do we do pretty well?
I think
We're
we're
trying as hard as we can.
streamlining as much as we can. I think you guys
Right.
did great with accepting the public hearings here, and I give council kudos for
Yep.
allowing that to happen.
Okay, so,
And I think it's important, I would do it every time, even though it takes a little time, just when we have the first public hearing, read your spiel about this is what we're doing. I think it's just important to remind people, come up, name, address, you. I think that's just a good reminder every time, to kind of play and then just, we get into this instead of, back and forth and just set the table that that's how we're going to handle things.
okay,
Yeah, I think it worked well.
yes.
Point of privilege before we adjourn. I just wanted to clarify that when I talked about bad faith earlier, I wasn't imputing that to the staff. That might have come out a little more aggressive than I intended it to. Yeah, I was just trying to explain how I felt about this. Okay, just want to clarify that I wasn't imputing bad faith to our staff, so. yeah.
No offense to
Yeah.
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
we are adjourned.
And I hope I'm here.
No, I can't.
for it.
Always good to know.